What's wrong with this picture? I said, what's wrong with this picture? Boxing reporter exposed for the double standards. Says Gary Russell basically made excuses in the loss to Mark Magsayo by upset. Yet when Vasiliy Lomachenko said that he had surgery and lost to Teofimo, it was another story. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, y'all know what to do. Stay posted. Now, as I started this video, what is wrong with this picture? You have a former ESPN writer, longtime writer in the boxing game, and that's Dan Rafael. And if you look at his most recent comments on yesterday night's fight with Gary Russell Jr., who was upset via decision by Mark Magsayo, Gary Russell declared before the fight that something was wrong with him and he was entering the fight with an injury, but chose to fight on, and he paid the price because now he has a second loss, and he was the longest reigning champion in boxing, and he ended up losing. You know, congrats to Mark Magsayo. I still think that Gary Russell acquitted himself very well, all things considered, given the fact that he was injured. So keep this in mind. Gary Russell declared he was injured, and he said that fans during the fight would probably find out that he was injured somewhere in the fight, right? He said fans would probably see something. I don't know why Gary Russell chose to say this, but it is what it is. And immediately on Twitter, you hear a reporter, and he says, if you get in the ring and fight, I don't want to hear excuses. If you are hurt, postpone. If not, you need to shut the F up. Hashtag Russell Magsayo. So Gary Russell Jr. is informed by boxing media writer Dan Rayfield that he needs to shut the F up, right? This was yesterday, January 22nd, 2022. But you also see on the screen a former tweet from him from just 2 years ago, late October, after Lomachenko suffered a loss to Teofimo Lopez. October 21st, 2020 at 1:19 p.m. The same author, the same boxing media personality or writer, whatever you want to call him, says when you have surgery, it's a fact. It's not an excuse, it's a fact. When you have a surgery, it's not an excuse, it's a fact. This, of course, was in regards to Lomachenko, who came out in terms of the media and said that his shoulder was bad, and that's why he suffered a second pro loss, just like Gary Russell. And Gary Russell fought Lomachenko, in case you're new to boxing, and lost. That was Gary Russell's first loss, a split decision, I think it was, to Lomachenko. And then Lomachenko loses his second fight. And so you look at the circumstances, and there's a lot of parallels. Lomachenko, he lost his second pro fight, right? And he made an excuse or said he had an injury pre-existing going into the Teofimo Lopez fight. Gary Russell lost to Lomachenko, so this makes it his second loss as well, right? And he said before the fight, unlike Lomachenko, nobody knew anything about Lomachenko's alleged shoulder. Gary Russell told you that his shoulder was bad before the fight even took place, right? But you see a stark contrast in the response from the same reporter. A person even said this. Alberto says, why not report the injury and postpone it? So the same reporter, Dan, says before the fight, Gary said he was injured, but he wouldn't say what it was. That also makes me question the New Jersey Commission. So you also have the same reporter on wax admitting that he knew that Gary Russell said that he was injured going into the fight. But all of a sudden, when there's a black fighter like Gary Russell Jr., we're sticklers for the rules, and there's a no-nonsense, zero-tolerance Clint Eastwood type of approach. Like, hey, you're making excuses. So when it comes to a black fighter, and he declared it, which has been confirmed by this reporter, there's a zero tolerance policy, as I just mentioned. And he's saying, man, I don't care about none of that. You lost. STFU. You know what I mean? Take a hike. But it's ironic to see the double standards that I always tell you about on my channel. That's why I'm the best in the business for the latest and greatest. This is your one-stop shop for boxing. So it would be one thing if it was the opinions of two different people, but it almost seems bipolar to be very endearing and accommodating to a Caucasian Ukrainian fighter like Vasiliy Lomachenko like a year and a half ago, and you're sympathetic to him making excuses for why he lost. But then there's a black fighter like Gary Russell Jr., and you're like, nah, I don't care. I don't want to hear anything. You lost. The belt is no longer being held hostage. You need to leave, right? So there's nothing else that needs to be said. You can see there's clearly something else going on, and people, whether they're shills for a company and pledging their allegiance, but you can see this is not even Steven. This is not being played on an even playing field. You know, it's like we see this, and it's funny because people say race doesn't matter in boxing, but you clearly see it apparently does. When certain fighters fail a drug test, or even like, for example, when the Charlo brothers missed a VADA appointment, they never failed a drug test. They weren't in town to administer the blood or urine or whatever VADA was trying to collect, because there was a Fox PBC up front basically, and they were in LA. But you seen fans, a lot of the racist fans, what they said was, oh, the Charlos, I knew something was suspicious. Even when Tony Harrison claimed that there was something in Jermell Charlo's Gatorade bottle, fans accused Jermell Charlo of being on something. And then when they missed that appointment, fans accused Jermell and Jamal Charlo of having something to hide. But then you see Oscar Valdez, a Mexican-American fighter, and he actually failed a drug test, not speculation from somebody, not, a test that was not collected for non-suspicious reason. He actually failed, and some of the same people in boxing, some of the same media, same reporters, same fans, they said, oh, I got to wait until I get the facts. So, Oscar Valdez wouldn't do that. He drank the tea, right? And you're seeing the same thing with this Gary Russell Jr. situation. Lomachenko, this is old media's God, and they had to justify why he lost to the kid Teofimo, who would later lose to Kambosos, right? And Lomachenko said his shoulder was bad, even though he didn't declare it. But the same reporter seen the reports and knew Gary Russell told you he had an injury before the fight. So he didn't just wait for the fight and just say and spring this on everybody. He let people know. But even though Gary Russell gave us notice as fans that something was wrong with him, which clearly showed up. You listen to the Showtime telecast, the whole time they're talking about how he's not throwing the right hand, and clearly something was wrong with Gary Russell Jr. And he reiterated this in the post-fight interview. But again, when it's a black fighter, it's a no-nonsense, zero-tolerance policy, apparently, from some people. So the hypocrisy, the double standards continue. We will continue to expose and call those out. Subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest. And I'm out. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.